Socialism never works.
If nothing is sold, there's no such thing as economy. There's no economy. Right. There's really no such thing as in society.
Affordable housing, healthcare, possible job displacement, stuff like that. The only thing that will solve those problems is...
And if you knock enough doors, eventually you're going to find somebody who is looking for the exact thing that you have and likes you enough to buy it from you.
Every human being, doesn't matter who you are, what you do, we all wear a mask. How do you get that other person to willingly want to take off the mask?
There's a double-digit increase in all-cause mortality due to loneliness.
People are individually glued to screens and devices most of the time.
Now, what's the biggest problem in life?
Everybody, welcome back to an episode of the Travis Makes Friends podcast. Today, I'm making friends with a couple of new guys, actually, at the same time. So, Paul Allen, Jeremy Lee Minor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us on. Thanks for the possible friendship. I mean,
well, it's up in the air right now.
We'll see. We got to see after the interview.
See how things go, man. You never know. This has been interesting because, Paul, I learned about you recently, but I think most people would recognize the name Ancestry.com. So that's maybe something that would be a little bit more familiar for folks. And then, Jeremy, I've followed your stuff for quite some time, just being in the sales space.
Yeah.
We might have maybe met or something at a conference at some point in the last couple of years, but I think this conversation's been a long time coming. And then when I saw Paul was going to join you, I was like, oh, even better. We can dive into the minds of two really brilliant people just in different regards. So let's kind of go back in time here. Let's start with Paul. Tell me how you got started in business, like first dollar ever that you ever made.
Well, I made puddle jumpers with my friend Eddie Strong in 5th grade, and we started selling them. But that was my only
Wait, what is that?
Puddle jumpers?
Yeah.
The little
enlighten me.
A dowel with a top popsicle stick on top that you would sand so that it was like a propeller, and you would paint the puddle jumper, and if you spin it like that, it'll go like 10 or 20 feet in the air. And so we sold them for like 50 cents or $1. So
nice.
That was short-lived. I have never even told that story, but I was actually not a fan of business at all. I actually had a really bad attitude towards business and greed and money and all that stuff. My father was a professor. My mom was a teacher. And I actually thought academia was the only noble calling in life.
Wow.
I don't think they ever told me that, but I just sensed that teaching young people was a great profession, and sales or business or whatever was just like low on the totem pole. So I wanted to be a professor myself, and started down that path. I got a Russian degree. I started a master's degree in library science. I wanted to be a Sovietologist and study the Kremlin.
That's wild.
A Sovietologist. I didn't even know that was.
Or a Kremlinologist. Really? It was so interesting to me that the Soviet Union, 12 people could run a country of hundreds of millions of people, 11 time zones, one of the richest resource countries on Earth, versus the United States, which also has a lot of territory, but we had prosperity and freedom and free markets. And so the contrast between central controlled totalitarian governments and freedom was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to study how do 12 people run a country for 70 or 80 years.
Jeez.
But
obviously you started Ancestry.com.
Yeah, exactly. No, but there's a family tie to why I did Ancestry.com. So my older brother started a search engine company called Folio, a technology keyword search engine in the 80s, 10 years before Google, and it became the world's best search engine. Well, he did that because my father, who was an engineer at Brigham Young University, invented two technologies, D-class and D-search. And my dad is a genius classification engineer and decision tree builder. So his clients, with his academic lab, they built software to make factories more efficient. His first client was Boeing, and then Caterpillar, Lockheed Martin, Martin Marietta, John Deere, Lawrence Livermore Labs. Everyone who wanted to have a classification system of all their raw materials, their machines, their parts, their processes, and a decision tree to help them lay out the factory in the ideal way with eliminate waste and inefficiency. So my dad did that. That led my brother to do Folio. That led me to get a part-time job working for my brother. And I got married that semester, and I needed a job. So I started out the lowest job at Folio. I was running a $40,000 Ray Kurzweil OCR scanner for 8 hours a day. It didn't take any skills. It was like running a photocopy machine. But my friend Steve Barwick decided to teach me programming. So 6 months into that job, I became a data prep engineer, and I learned how to put millions of pages of content into searchable indexed info bases. That immediately led to my first company, Infobases.
Wow.
And that was 1990. And then that led directly to Ancestry 6 years later.
So for somebody who placed a very high value on traditional education, the majority of the skills that made you brought you all the success in life actually were outside of that education system.
Yeah, but it was all from reading and studying books and attending conferences. I never had a business class. I never had a technology class. Yeah. So once I decided to go all in to being a great entrepreneur, I had an interview with the Harvard Business School dean, Kim Clark, in 96. So I was finishing selling my first CD-ROM business, and I was either going to go to Harvard Business School and learn how to be a great entrepreneur, or I was going to start Ancestry.com. So I had a half-hour call with Kim Clark, and he talked me out of going to Harvard.
Wow.
He's like, you've already been a CEO for 5 or 6 years. Like, we want our Harvard second-year students to finish and then go off and be a CEO. Like, you've already done it.
Yeah.
You'll hate the first year at Harvard Business School.
Yeah.
If you make it through the first year, you'll be in love with the second year because it's all electives. You'll get to pick the courses and the teachers. But I decided to start Ancestry.com instead. So thank you, Kim Clark, for that good advice.
Good advice.
But the kind of the technology or the ideation runs in my family.
Yeah.
There's no way Ancestry.com would have ever existed without my brother building Folio, without my father building D-Search and D-Class. It just kind of osmosis, I guess, it just led me to do what I did.
Yeah, but you always had an itch to solve problems, it sounds like, even from
I think what I wanted to do was put all the world's knowledge at people's fingertips. I think I love learning so much that I realized that instead of teaching 20 people in a classroom, what if I can build something that teaches millions or tens of millions or billions of people something important? Like, what are the most important books in the world? Well, let's put them on CD-ROM. What are the most important stories in the world? Your family stories. Let's put them all at your fingertips so that everybody can discover their heritage. And the strength that we get from our family stories is extraordinary and way too rare.
Yeah, yeah. Do you still feel like you put yourself in the category of avid learner?
Totally.
In what ways? Like you still
podcasts,
reading books? Okay.
Reading books. I read a lot. Tim Sanders wrote a phenomenal book called Love is the Killer App.
Okay.
And Tim was going to be in ministry or something, but he ended up building a company selling to Yahoo. But Tim is a religious person, but his book, Love is the Killer App, not only talks about bringing love and connection and kindness into the workplace, but he also said in that book that 80% of your information diet should be from books. Why? Because if you read newspapers, they're fast put together. They might not have all the right facts. If you read magazines, same thing. The books take years to write usually, and they go through an editorial process so that the ore that comes out on the other side is high-grade ore. So he just said 80-20. You can get sources, information daily from other sources, but he actually said 80% of your reading or your learning should be from books. But he taught me how to read the book and study the book and preserve my insights from the book. He has a methodology that's phenomenal, and I've used it for many years with some of the most important books I've ever read. So I just think I'm addicted to learning, and I want to make learning easier for everybody in the world, however they find information. Find the highest grade ore you can get, learn from the top thinkers and experts in the field, and you'll get incredible benefits.
Jeremy, let's move on to your story a little bit. I don't remember exactly how I first came across your stuff. I want to say it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Probably saw a reel or something?
Probably something like that.
Started,
I usually whenever I see some sort of sales, something I tune in. You know, I did door-to-door for probably 5-6 years at the beginning.
Who did you do door-to-door for? What were you selling?
Several different companies. Started in solar.
Okay.
Back then, it was a company called Varango. They were Sunrun's largest installers before Sunrun did their own sales program. Yeah. They were just buying contracts. So Varango was their number one installer. So I did door-to-door for them. We switched over to Solar City. Okay. Did solar for them for a little while. And then
that was Elon Musk's old company, Solar City,
Yeah. His cousins started it. Yeah. And then he acquired it from them, and now it's Tesla. And then did alarms, did water purification, did exterior construction jobs.
You've done a lot of door-to-door.
A lot of door-to-door. Then moved into online sales and stuff like that too. So ran the gamut. So anytime I see like any sort of piece of sales advice, I'm always like, no, let's see what this person has to say,
Yeah.
But yours is one of the ones that I constantly follow and like refer back to, because I find that most people offering sales training, it tends to be more of the like 1980s used car salesman training style, which I just have never really resonated with. And if it works for you, it works for you, I guess. But I tend to think that most of that stuff is just really, it's built for short-term success rather than long-term success. Like you might be able to see
it's a numbers game.
Yeah,
I always say
the burn and turn method.
Yeah, and it is what it is. I always say, what's the biggest problem in sales? For life, it's the problem that you don't know you have. That's the biggest problem, because if you don't know what your problems are, how do you ever go about changing them? And I think most salespeople just aren't aware that those techniques don't really work that well compared to what you could learn.
Yeah. And especially if you want to eventually get off of the not like the hamster wheel of sales, which is like you always have to generate new business, always. It's the insurance salesman who's at the chamber meeting from the time that he started at 26 until the time he's retiring at 66.
Yeah, the long-term effect.
It's like, man, you're doing that same exact thing. Like clearly something's not working if the majority of your business at this point is not referrals from people who are super happy with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And even, when I was door-to-door, there was a reason why I was the number one in that industry. It wasn't the turn and burn. It was still a quick sale, right? Because you're in and out of the house in 45 minutes at the most. I started off in college, got my first job selling home security systems door to door. So Pinnacle Security, and then ended with like present day Vivint, if that makes sense, before I got out of the industry. But the reason why I was the, number one according to amount of installs and everything is because I didn't like when I first started knocking on a door, whereas most door-to-door salespeople, like they get a couple doors slammed in their face and they're like, oh my gosh, this area is bad, or, these people are mean in this area. Like I came from a different viewpoint because I was going to school, studying psychology, was going to become a psychologist, specializing in like neuropsychology, which is study the brain and how it works with your nervous system, right? So like I had a different way of viewing that. So when I knock on a door in the beginning, because I didn't know really what I was doing, the training was just, here's a script and here's a couple of books, how it is.
Yeah.
And, somebody slammed the door in the face that their first 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And I'm like, oh, I didn't, instead of complaining that it was their fault, I'm like, okay, what did I say? What did I do there with my tone? Or like, how did I cause that resistance? How did I trigger their fight or flight in their nervous system? So all I did was start reverse engineering, like what would actually, cause them to let their guard down compared to let guard up, and that's kind of where NEPQ was started to develop from.
Yeah. Well, tell me the product you were selling, because I know you did a couple years of 7 figures in commissions, right? When you were a sales guy.
I did more than that. So in door-to-door sales, I was just in a summer program. So I only worked for 4 months every summer. So I'd make about 6 figures a month, but you'd only work 4 months. So you maybe make $400,000. Pay scales are a little bit different now compared to when I was there. I'm like, man, if I was selling that now, I'd make like 3 times as much in the summer.
Literally.
And then after 5 years of that, going to school, I then went into B2B sales, like enterprise level, like debt relief services. Did really, really well. I started making 7 figures a year in commissions in that industry.
Okay.
And then, so that was like 5 straight years, and then got into network marketing the next 5 years, made multiple 7 figures a year in that in commissions. And then last 3 years, sold like financial investment conferences to individuals and companies, more smaller companies, anywhere from like 50 grand to 250, and made multiple 7 figure commissions. I didn't own those businesses. I sold for them like just a W-2 or 1099.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to say, man, because that's why I like sales so much for most people, right? Like obviously starting at Ancestry.com it's the path to that outsized result is riddled with so many obstacles and so many learnings and so many variables, and you sprinkle in a little bit of luck, you sprinkle in a little bit of timing, you get unicorn status, right? Mm-hmm. Not to downplay any of the hard work that you put into it, but I'm saying there's a lot that goes into that. Whereas sales to me is it's just so linear. When you go, if you're stuck somewhere, you don't have a college degree, or maybe your college degree is worthless or useless like it is for a lot of people, and you're making 55 grand a year, there's just no better way to go from 50 to 250 than to start learning how to sell stuff.
It's just we've talked about this on a couple of shows here. it's all how you communicate. Like you don't even have to be in sales. Like you could be, on the operations team and you've got a really good idea and maybe you're competing with 3 other people in your department to get that idea to your COO to get it implemented. Mm-hmm. Who's going to win that? It's not necessarily the person who has the best idea. It's the person who knows how to frame that idea and how to communicate that idea better than the other 2 that's going to get that deal, even if their idea is not as good. Yeah. So it's not necessarily you're saying, it's the perception of the value, and that all comes from how they perceive the value of what you do and what you say, and that all is based on how you communicate that. You don't even have to be in sales.
Yeah, I've found the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions that you ask yourself and others.
And how?
What have been a few of the questions that you've asked yourself, over the last recent years in order to come up with some of these core concepts and ideas?
Well, we were talking about this earlier. It's all about the EQ of the emotional connection there that you have with that other individual, that other human being on the other side of the phone, on the other side of Zoom, and the other side of the table or wherever you're selling. And I think to get to the highest level of mastering communication, because I always say every human being, doesn't matter who you are, what you do, we all wear a mask. We all wear this mask that we try to protect ourselves and our image and everything. And how do you get that other person to willingly want to take off the mask and open up emotionally to you and tell you what's really going on? I think for a salesperson, you first have to really get good at learning how to take your own mask off. How do you take your own mask off? Because if you don't know how to do that yourself, it's harder for you to learn how to get somebody to want to do that with you. And so that's one thing that it takes a while. You have to go through, in my mind, I just know from personal experience, like thousands of conversations to get to that level. But as soon as you start to really, take your own mask off in your own life and realize that, hey, I'm not perfect. There's things I've got to work on. I think you start to open up to other people. Stephen R. Covey, first seek to understand, then be understood. That's a really important principle people should live by.
Yeah. What about you, Paul?
Questions that I've asked myself over the years? Yeah. So I think, first of all, I had to decide that being an entrepreneur is not a negative thing. It's not a low calling. It's like when I went to the Inc. 500 awards in Philadelphia in 1996, I thought these are the
This is for your first company.
This is my first company.
Yeah.
The 500 coolest people I've ever met in my life. These are amazing creators, builders. And I'm like, okay, why did I think ill of people that are in business, that are entrepreneurs? Like, why would I have had I have no idea where it came from. But I quickly unlearned that. And then I said, that's a great calling. I want to be a great entrepreneur for the rest of my life. You can imagine things, you can build things, you can hire people, you create jobs, and you create, reality that didn't exist before. So I think entrepreneurship is a phenomenally noble calling. And I think the world is a good place largely because of people that had ideas and acted on them. Like if you look at, Robert Allen wrote a book once called 1 Minute Millionaire. He said, look at every single physical object in this room. It started out as an idea in somebody's head. They designed it, they built it, then they sold it. Somebody sold it. Yeah. And then somebody supported that. It's like, it's kind of cool that the value creation process starts with ideas and it goes through building and selling and supporting. So, but yeah, I think the questions I've asked myself most are really related to, okay, you could build any kind of company. What company should I build? What is right for me based on my talents, based on my values, based on my goals? So it's been a lot of introspection about what do I want to build? What do I want to build next? And they've all kind of related to information, making accessible more information that's more useful for people. And now in the world of AI, the challenge and the opportunity is so cool. Like, what if every human being could become way more than they ever thought possible by learning from experts and having AI coach them or give them feedback on every part of life? Yeah. So I think we're entering this era of like, there's no limit on what good could possibly be done in the age of intelligence to help every human being find their purpose, develop their talents, form relationships, build companies or create things, and live their best life. I think humanity at large could enter a new era in the age of intelligence that is unprecedented in terms of human flourishing and human fulfillment if we design a system like that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
you said something really brilliant there. You said that when you talk about Robert Allen, everything that's ever been built was for a reason. You're 100% right. Like everything any product or service or anything that was ever designed was built or designed to solve problems and or emotional needs. There's never been anything in the history of this planet that was not built to solve a problem and or emotional need. Like, I always give this analogy, like, if you go to like a luxury car dealership and you want to buy a $500,000 Lamborghini or whatever floats your boat, like that doesn't necessarily solve a problem because you can drive a used Kia, to get from point A to point B, but it does solve an emotional need. Mm-hmm. For that person, maybe they grew up as a kid that was bullied and now they're really successful and they want to show like literally their former classmates that they've arrived, they're successful. So it solves that emotional need. Or maybe their dad said they would never amount to anything and now they want to like prove him wrong. So they want to have that high status. So there's never been anything ever built that didn't solve a problem or an emotional need. So in my mind, sales and communication, persuasion, influence should be very, very high status because if nothing is sold, there's no such thing as the economy. There's no economy. Right. There's really no such thing as a functioning society.
We put out a video recently saying something. It was something about door-to-door. It was something about how anybody can learn sales. It's just a matter of being willing to withstand the rejection that inevitably comes up in the meantime before you get good at it. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about how even the worst salesperson, if you knock enough doors, can get a deal because eventually you're going to find somebody who is looking for the exact thing that you have and likes you enough to buy it from you. Mm-hmm. And I said something about, even if it takes you 1,000 doors, you're going to get one. And then, that number gets a little bit smaller, the better you get and whatever. Yeah. And some random internet person decided to comment on it, said something about like, or you just bothered 999 people or something. Mm. And I go to his profile, see that he's a sportscaster, like he's, a talking head on some local news program or something. Sure. And I just commented back and said something about, why don't you take a few steps and walk over to the other department where there's inevitably a bunch of people on phones selling advertising so that you have a paycheck to keep commentating on sports. You're not above it. You know what I mean? You're a part of the system.
He's selling himself to get that job, to be on that network.
Exactly.
He had to sell himself.
He had to become good at something.
Yeah.
Right.
He's selling too. He's just not getting paid a commission, but he's technically selling an audience to watch him.
Yep.
And that's what I always say, selling is not something you do to people. Selling is something you do for people. Yep. You're not doing it to them to manipulate them to make money. That's what average salespeople do.
Correct.
You're doing it for them because they have problems that you can solve, and without you, they stay in the status quo and their problems stay the same. So you're doing it for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of a shift in the mind. And to realize that regardless of what you do, you're still part of it. It was kind of my point to that guy, just to be like, look, man, none of us are outside 100%. Of this. Without sales, nobody makes money.
That's right.
Yeah. Somebody has to be out there marketing the product, selling the product, getting people to exchange money for the value your product provides so that you can have a paycheck to sit there and talk about sports for a living.
And the misperception that I had about entrepreneurship in those early years, and now I love entrepreneurship, I love entrepreneurs. Jeremy's mission with Seventh Level, his whole kind of mission statement is about changing the perception of salespeople in society by changing how sales communication happens. It's really cool because if we can reframe things and say, hey, entrepreneurship is awesome. Let's get 10 times more people coming up with things. Mm-hmm. And then they all need salespeople to make those dreams come to life. And so then it's just mutually beneficial. It's synergistic. And then the economy grows. And
that's right.
Most of the woes that people have right now, affordable housing and health issues and healthcare and, possible job displacement, stuff like that. The only thing that will solve those problems is entrepreneurship and sales.
Right. Yeah.
You can't just government your way out of what is it going to give to the population that it didn't take from people that are creating wealth and value.
Yeah.
Socialism never works. The reason I was obsessed with communism is that the mass suffering that happens with communism and centrally planned economies, but we can't pretend that our country hasn't gone towards central planning.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Both parties spending trillions of dollars to design our energy, our finance, our health systems, education. You can't centrally do it right. It has to be done at the edges by innovators and doers.
Yeah, well, and then the market gets to decide.
Exactly.
Whether that's the whole thing about
it has to if it's going to get the right answer.
Yeah.
If it's not the market deciding, we get the wrong solution, doesn't meet the need, and things are off kilter.
And that's, I'm really glad you brought up that analogy, that sportscaster, because I really, most people don't realize that they're out trying to persuade and influence and sell people every day, even if they're not in sales. You know, it's called non-sales selling. Like if you're an entrepreneur, like this guy, like you are, and you're trying to get your employees to follow your vision where you want to go, what are you doing? You're trying to persuade and you're trying to influence, you're trying to move others. You know, we talked about it earlier. If you're an attorney trying to convince a jury of your peers that your client is innocent, what are you doing? You're trying to persuade, you're trying to influence. If you're a sportscaster trying to get an audience to watch you, you're trying to persuade, influence. Like everybody is in this ball game we call persuasion and influence. And we believe that it's the number one skill set everyone has to learn. Because like I said, you could be in the operations staff and you have a great idea, but if you don't know how to communicate that idea better than somebody else, their ideas who might not be good as yours are going to win yours because they know how to frame that better than you.
I talked to a guy's, I'm blanking on his name. I'll have to pull it up later. So I give him a shout out. Really smart entrepreneur. But what's interesting is that he's actually, I don't believe any of the products that he's actually sold in the company that he's built were actually his. He was a smart dude, came out of college with a degree from some prestigious university, but couldn't get a job. So he like moves back home. And then a family member owned a storage unit facility, and they were emptying out one of the storage units. And there was a guy who had a storage unit that had these foldable beach chairs that had like a little canopy on them that you could like fold up and like put on your back like a backpack. And then you unfold it and the canopy comes up, whatever. And there was just like, it's just been sitting on this idea. It was fully designed, completely patented, literally sitting in a storage unit, collecting dust, doing nothing.
Yeah.
So this entrepreneur kid, basically the owner of the storage facility is like, hey, you're a smart kid. You're 22, 23, you're jobless. Like, here's a product. This guy doesn't know what to do with it. Why don't you try to start doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So he starts wearing it, taking it to beaches, talking to people, starts selling it. Like 4 years later, he's on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine.
Amazing.
It
turns into a multi-8-figure business that he exited by the time he was in his late 20s.
Yeah.
And it was, again, one of those things where it's like, anybody can have ideas. Anybody can build products, but selling those ideas and executing against that product is where the sausage is made.
It's always how you frame it. I always like to give this analogy, and I've got to give credit to my buddy Dan Henry that talked about this on a podcast with me. Imagine you have a family your family picture with your kids, your spouse. It's up on your mantle or your desk. So let's say you have two of those identical family pictures. Okay, you got to go out and buy 2 picture frames for the identical picture. So one frame you go and it's luxury store. It's like solid gold frame, like just the beautiful, just shining off the mantle frame. You put it on that one picture. The second frame, you go to like a flea market and it's got a lot of holes in it and it's got cobwebs in it. It looks like it's tattered and like beat up. And now that second picture, which is the same exact picture, is framed with the flea market. Which one are you going to get? You're going to get the one that's framed better. It's the same exact picture, but you're going to like the one that is framed better. That's what selling is. It could be the exact, because in a consumer's mind, whether it's a business you're selling to or consumers, any industry, it all kind of sounds the same to them. They don't know all the differences between the life insurance policies or the different software or the different, cars or whatever you're selling. They don't really know what the salespeople in the company knows that are selling them. So everybody's telling them the same thing, like we're number one, we're the best at this. So it's kind of like all the noise is drowned out. So the only thing that's going to separate that is how you frame that offer is going to depend on if a lot of people buy that product or not. Because I know you guys have probably seen products that are really, really good, but they don't really sell that well because they don't know how to frame it. They don't know how to sell it compared to an offer that's not that good,
right?
But everybody's buying it because it's perceived differently. There's a different perception of value because the people communicating their message know how to frame that much better.
Yeah. Let's talk about framing a little bit more. This is something I first heard, I think, from Oren Klaff, from Pitch Anything. He wrote a book called Pitch Anything, but he talked about the framing. Something I've used a lot is even in like podcast interviews and things like that, where especially if you're on with somebody who is more of like a type A personality, they tend to take over every conversation that they're in. Sometimes you kind of have to just at the very beginning, like set them straight and just say, like, this is my show. And we're going to follow this path rather than whatever path you feel like going down, Sure. But it's always served me setting up the frame well. So can you tell me just a couple of tools
So Oren framing? Talks about framing. I like to take it a step further. I talk about identity framing. So when I went to school, a person we studied a lot was Sigmund Freud, like the godfather of this. And he has a saying, I'll abbreviate it: people do who they believe they are. People do who they believe they are. So what he taught is that people make decisions based on the identity of the person who they believe they are. So let's say that you have a person that when you get on there's A-type, and they're probably going to be kind of closed off, going to give you short answers, think they know everything. And I kind of figured that out in the first couple of minutes. Let's say I'm in a sales conversation. So after a few connection questions, this would not be the first thing you would say because it'd be awkward. But let's say you get into the conversation 2 or 3 minutes, and I might notice that that's a trait that they're doing. I'm like, it's interesting that it's really good connecting, because I was on this call like maybe 30 minutes ago with this guy. I mean, the type, like one-word answers, closed off, thought they knew everything there was to know. And we all know that comes from fear, right? I mean, we all know that people who can't open up about their problems, it's like, how can they ever get them solved? You know what I mean? So anyways, so what am I doing? What I'm doing, that's an identity frame to a negative where he or she doesn't want to associate with that type of person who's closed off, one-word answers, think they know everything. And so that by petition causes them to be more open because they don't want to identify with that negative behavior. Yeah. That's an example of an identity frame.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that.
There's a lot more to that, but yeah.
Of course. Yeah. No, we'll dive into a little bit more specifics here as we get a little bit further.
But you could do that with anybody. Like you could do that with an employee, that is not, doing something the way you want them to do. You could even, I always talk about building the prospect into the identity of the person who becomes a buyer. Because a lot of salespeople are like, oh, I got to qualify them. Well, most people are qualified for what you offer. Like, unless you're selling a $20 million solution to somebody that's homeless, it's not like they can't find the funding or funds if they really want to.
Yeah.
But right now, where they're currently spending that money is more of a priority in their mind compared to what you're offering. So how do I switch them from where they're currently spending the money to now your solution is number one priority? Is I can build them into that identity of the person who actually becomes a buyer in their mind. So let's say, an example of like, it could even be an employee, let's say that is doing something weird and I want to change their mindset. I might say something like, wow, you're so smart with what you just said there. Like your spouse, like, or I could even do it like your department head, like they're lucky to have somebody as dedicated as you are that is that forward thinking and can make those decisions themselves. Because I talk to a lot of people, a lot of employees in here, and you'd be surprised how many of them, they just don't really care about getting their work done. They're just there to collect a check. You know what I mean? I mean, for you, like being that responsible, like caring for the company, wanting to expand it, is this something you were born with or something you had to learn?
Yeah.
So like you see what I'm doing there. I'm acknowledging, like, it sounds like you're the type of person that's forward thinking. If I have somebody that, let's say, gets on a sales call and they're like, oh, well, I've tried this in the past and it never worked out. Well, what objection am I probably going to get at the end? That your thing might be the same thing. Yeah. It's not going to work out.
It's a self-belief objection.
It's a self-belief. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take that and be a positive. And I'm like, wow, it sounds like you're the type of person that never gives up. So see how I'm reframing it now. It's not a negative thing because they're there with you so they don't give up. Well, it sounds like you're the type of person that never gives up. And you're, to say it's a consumer, your spouse, she's lucky to have a provider like you that is that responsible and knows they have to make the hard decisions themselves for the family. Because I talk to a lot of people, and you'd be surprised how so many people let some negative experience from like some bad product or service like completely stop them from getting what they want. You know what I mean? I mean, is that something have always been like had that capability to be like that from birth, or is that something you had to learn?
Yeah.
So I'm going positive identity. It sounds like you're the type of person that never gives up. And let's say I'm talking to a guy, it sounds like you're, your spouse, she's lucky to have a provider like you. So they provide like you that is that responsible and knows they have to make the hard decisions themselves. So what am I, trying to prevent? The spouse objection, knows they have to make the hard decisions themselves. Nobody's going to disagree with that label. They're like, yeah, that's me. Even if they're not like that, they're going to be like, yeah, that's me, right? And then notice how I go into negative identity. I talk to a lot of people, and you'd be surprised how many of them, they just let some negative experience, let's say if you're selling coaching service, like, negative coach or some bad coaching experience by someone's qualified, like completely prevent them from ever following their dreams. They don't want to be associated with that person, right? And then I reinforce the frame and I say, I mean, for you being that forward thinking where you never give up, is that something you're born with or something you had to learn? Whatever they say there, I've always been that way or something I had to learn. Now they're starting to buy into the new identity. See what I'm doing?
Yeah. It's almost like we could all use a version of Jeremy as an AI.
hey.
That would
not a bad
maybe
idea.
Coach us through this.
So many things you could do. Like you could do that with your spouse. You could do that with, you could do that with your child. You could do, like, you can build people. You can, I always, like I said, I always say, build the prospect into the identity. But then I started telling people in departments, like, you can build the people that work underneath you into the version of themselves that they're not there. Like, you can build them into the identity of the person who is a great employee, who's a great decision maker,
which is your job.
Yeah,
as the leader.
Yeah, because so many companies, it's interesting because whenever I hear somebody say like, "Oh, they're just not a good fit for our culture," I was like, "Well, welcome to big business," because one of the couple companies I worked for, we had thousands of employees. It's like, there's going to be some people that aren't going to fit the culture. This is not like a 5-person rock band. Like, you start getting 100 employees plus, like, there's going to be some people that don't fit the culture. So how do you build them into the identity of the person who does fit the culture? Let's talk about that.
And it's just words and questions that can reframe that. I remember when I started Soar AI Studio about 8 years ago, I had an early partner who invested a little bit, and she heard me complaining about pitching investors all the time. I think I said something like, I've got 5 investor pitches today. I'm just so tired of doing this. And she worked at Covey Leadership for many years. And she said, Paul, if you say that, you will believe that. You will change your words and change your reality. So I started saying, I love investor meetings. I love investor pitches. I've now raised $15 million from over 2,300 investors in the last 7 years.
Wow.
I literally love every investor meeting I do. I just had to say, I'm going to love it. And now I actually do, because every investor I talk to has money, the ability to make a decision. They have an incredible life story. Yeah. How did they get to where they are? Yeah. And I love to meet them. And I love to see if the thing we're building resonates with them. Yeah. And it's not always a hit. Sometimes it's 20% hit rate or 15% hit rate. But I love meeting these people. And now, I'm not sure we're friends yet after one meeting. But
we'll see.
He's the judge of that.
But it's so cool because people are awesome. Yeah. And just the chance to sell to someone or to raise money from someone is a chance to meet another amazing human being.
Yeah. And you never know where that connection is going to go.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's the opportunity tree that just spawned out of nothing from the chance happening of meeting with somebody. You never know where it's going to end up.
So true.
Tell me more about Soar. Yeah, where did that come from?
So Soar is actually an aspirational phrase from a psychologist in the 20th century that I consider the greatest psychologist of all time, Dr. Donald O. Clifton. Okay. In 1952, after coming back from the war, where he'd been a navigation airman on a bunch of bombing raids over Europe, he wanted to do something good for the world. So he studied psychology, and he noticed in the 40s and 50s that almost every book on psychology was about what's wrong with people. And he actually asked one question in 1952, and then he played it out for 51 years. What would happen if we studied what's right with people instead of what's wrong with people? So just like my dad classified all materials and all parts and processes that could be used to take raw material and turn it into really valuable finished goods, Don Clifton built the largest taxonomy in history of human talent and human potential and the pathway to help people become excellent at something. So for 51 years, that's what he obsessed on. So his first book in 1992 was called Soar with Your Strengths. So my kind of life goal is to take his work, which 35 million people have discovered their top 5 CliftonStrengths. But my goal is to help 1 billion people learn their strengths and live their strengths every day and use it as an operating system to guide their life. So AI will play a key role in that, helping you remember what your talents are, what path would be good for you, what could you be successful at, what experts are there that could help unlock your talent, and then that feedback loop that you need to get better and better. Don Clifton actually wanted every human to know what excellence felt like. Yeah. And he thought everyone had enough talent, if they worked at it, that they could become better at something than 10,000 other people.
So many people just go to work and do something they don't even like.
Exactly.
And I don't think they really understand the direction of where they should go. Yeah. They don't have they just don't have the knowledge.
Well,
right?
honestly,
so they just kind of go through the motions. They're part of the system. They're just part of the system.
Honestly, the word talent is a big problem in our world today. If you're in K through 12, what is talent to a high schooler?
Yeah, something academic or
it could
athletic.
Could be athletic. It could be performance, art, music.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't think they have any talent.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, guess what my number 2 talent is according to Dr. Don Clifton?
What's that?
Input. Have you ever heard of the talent of input, Travis?
Yeah, I have not.
Do you know what people with input do? They're wired to collect things and dispense things. Input, output. Yeah. And so all my life work in gathering books, gathering data, gathering knowledge and expertise, it became because of my input. But nobody in 9th grade or 12th grade or college says, Paul, you have input.
Yeah.
You should do something with
focus
it.
on your input.
I've noticed an extraordinary talent for your input. Yeah.
Now, some people collect recipes and they're a resource to all their friends. Like somebody has input for recipes. But there's 34 CliftonStrengths. And most people would look at those words and say, I never thought of that as a talent before.
Yeah.
So Don Clifton saw human potential like no one else. And Soar AI Studio wants to build a series of companies to help people unlock that potential and that talent in every area of life that matters.
I see. Okay. So you're raising money, you're raising capital for investing into those companies?
Into the portfolio companies. Okay. So like CitizenPortal.ai is transcribing every public meeting in the United States and turning it into a news engine and a social network for self-government. So we hope to have tens of millions of people joining Citizen Portal someday. AskJeremy.ai is our workplace and sales joint venture with Seventh Level to try to take the world's best sales training and to scale it up so that millions or hundreds of millions of people can learn communication and sales techniques so that they can better their life.
Yeah.
And we'll have a founder portal for entrepreneurs, a faith portal for people of faith, a family portal for genealogy and story collecting. But yeah, my input is on full speed right now, gathering and dispensing across.
What I love about Paul is like with Ancestry.com is, he was focused on like the past, like find your ancestors and live, like find out who they were like, because you might have traits like your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather that moved over here from Denmark, in the 1700s or whatever. You don't know.
Yeah.
So he built this platform that like gave access to anybody to be able to go find out who their ancestors are, like in the past. Now, the exit's Ancestry, and now he's in AI, like building out like learning for the future. So it's like past to future. Guy's brilliant at input. The platform.
I have ideation. I have ideation too.
Input platform genius.
No, but
nobody would have known that.
It is fun to be alive today, and just to have this technology wave that we can either get crushed by, or we can sail. We can like surf it and take it as far, like farther than we ever thought possible before.
Well, it's just going to present a new set of problems, right? Like every great technology solves a bunch of problems and then presents a whole slew of problems on their own,
which will create opportunities for people to solve those problems. Right. So it's all
like I said, human beings are adaptable. They always adapt. From the Industrial Revolution, when it was going to wipe out all the jobs, there were just many new industries created that didn't exist. To the internet, the .com boom, it was supposed to wipe out salespeople. It was supposed to wipe out all these careers. All it did was create industries that didn't exist. And the same thing will happen with AI. Human beings always adapt, and new problems by new technology are always like put there, and then you have to have new industries to solve those. So there will be industries, I believe hundreds of more industries that exist in the next 10 years that we don't even know anything about right now.
Yeah. Well, it's the exciting part about it, right? Yeah. One of the things we talk about on the show a lot, obviously, is friendship, loneliness, things like that. I'm curious, first of all, how you guys sort of formed beginning stages of your friendship, and then how that sort of came into doing this joint venture.
It all started in 2003 when I worked for Pinnacle. That then I went over to Vivid, and our campus building was right next to Ancestry.com. Now, little I know, when I was in college, driving by Ancestry every single day, that man sitting up there somewhere that I would be a partner with. 22 years later.
That's
so
wild.
It comes full circle. But we met probably 7-8 months ago. Our representatives reached out to each other. We were looking for like my vision was, how do I duplicate myself?
Yeah.
There's in sales training, there's very few. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 of us in the entire world that train every industry. But we have to have trainers and license them and like make sure they're teaching the right things. And that gets watered down. So like, how do I take my brain and have 10 million Jeremy miners? And when I heard about AI, I was like, that's the thing. Like that's what we're looking for. And, we reached out to these guys and a couple other industries and we were talking back and forth. And I felt Paul's like just belief in input platforms and his genius. I just had a good feeling about Paul. You might not know this. I've had a good feeling about you wanting to really help people. A lot of people say they want to help people, but I believe it's not all people, but sometimes it's disingenuous. It's like a mask. Like you can tell that it's not real. It's like, I want to help people, but yeah, you want to make money. And you want to make money, right? The more people help, the more money by default you make. But I could just feel like in your soul that there's a reason why you were born here on this planet at this time. And this is one of those big reasons. And so that's why we wanted to partner with Paul. I don't know why you guys wanted to partner with us.
Well, let's hear your side of the story.
We had built a platform.
Back in 2003, I saw this car driving by my right. I was like, that guy.
This crappy old car,
No. When we met earlier this year, so our platform has been evolving over the past 7-8 years. And it got to the point where we could record any call or any meeting and give people coaching and feedback on how well they did on any framework. Leadership, communication, empathy, employee recognition or appreciation, sales. And so we just needed people with awesome methodology. So what has been invented by Jeremy over the last several years with NEPQ is a very advanced form of communication that really brings human feeling and emotion and connection and the right kinds of questions, just all the things he's talking about. So it was a marriage made in heaven for sure. And from the very earliest meetings, we felt a connection. Now, the last few hours of the several days that we've spent together in the last two months, I've gone back to my team and I've said, man, I'm blown away by Jeremy. Every hour I spend with him, my respect for him goes up. I mean, he's talking about psychology insights from 50 or 100 years ago and how it applies to today.
Yeah.
So I just think it's fantastic that our team, Brandon Metcalf is our GM for our workplace division.
Oh, he's brilliant.
And gets to work with Jeremy and his team at 7th Level. Yeah. So this is a joint venture. Yeah. This is a partnership where it will be a friendship, but also a partnership where skill and training combined with AI feedback has unlimited scale because it can be personalized to each person, whatever their context, whatever their product, whatever industry. It's like there's no limit to how many people this could help.
Well, they have the best engineers, a lot of them from like Ancestry. You have, what's your chief?
Our chief AI officer was trained at OpenAI in 2019 when they were still training GPT-2. She's got a PhD and she's in Austin, Texas. Okay. So we've got fantastic investors.
Where does she teach at? She's a professor at Texas A&M?
At University of Texas.
University of Texas, yeah. They just have the right team, the right engineers. So we plug in the methodology. We've got tens of thousands of hours of my training, for client training, industry specific in there, and it's just
we don't have his handsome face yet, but if there wants to be a Jeremy avatar, that could come too. So what the market wants, we'll give to them. But the voice, the tone, the analysis, taking somebody who's achieved mastery of something as important as connection and empathy and helping them get to the decision that will help them forward, that's a rare skill. Yeah. I mean, there's not that many people that have achieved it. So to be able to clone that and allow that to give everyone feedback, the leveling up will happen faster than ever before in sales training.
The cool thing is that, we have thousands of hours in there, but I'm still doing about 20 hours of training a week.
Oh, wow.
Oh, for sure. I love it. Like my team keeps trying to take me off of like some of the different because I mainly train our more advanced inner circle clients that are it's all industry specific, where I train them how to tie it in NEPQ to any industry. And we limit how many people a month can even get into that program. So that's the one I still do, but I still do those calls every week because I have my team's like, you gotta get off, like limited access, no biting access to you. And I'm like, that's not why I started this. Like I started this because I want to do this because my mind has to stay sharp. I have to stay in the ball game. I have to see, we make tweaks with NEPQ all of the time. It gets better. And every quarter, we're redoing something in our different virtual training portals. I'm like, you know what? The way we said that, we need to explain that better. And we'll go in and tweak just one question, or we'll have a client that just changed a couple different tweaks on a few different things, frameworks we're teaching, let's say in life insurance. And now we're like, that works even better. Let's change that. And so we're always constantly looking for the perfect and we'll probably never get there, but like we're always like on the edge. That's what I talk about. I believe that the most successful people in life really never become happy because once like they get fulfilled with what they do, I feel fulfilled, but like I don't think you ever get truly 100% happy, because if you do, you kind of just stay where you're at. You're content, and you have to be driven to always want to improve the thing you're doing. Like your daughter in her piano, like how she's like had this great performance, and the first thing she says like, I missed this key and I missed that key, because she's not happy. She's always looking for perfection, and that's why she's one of the best.
Have you guys thought about that much in terms like happiness versus achievement versus fulfillment versus meaning? Like what's actually worth pursuing in life? I just feel like that one phrase of the Declaration of Independence has led many people astray, which is the pursuit of happiness. And I'm not sure that happiness in and of itself is a, first of all, worthy pursuit, let alone an achievable one. So I'm curious.
Actually, I have very strong feelings about this, and I hope the Soar platform plays a role in helping hundreds of millions or billions of people to find joy or happiness. But here's my personal belief, and it comes from my religious background. The founder of the church that I belong to, or the restorer of the church that I belong to, said, happiness is the object and purpose of our existence and will be the end thereof if we pursue the means that lead to it. In other words, if you live God's laws, if you learn to love your neighbor, love your enemy, if you learn how to take those Christ-like teachings and virtues and embody them, if you live according to those principles, I think that happiness or joy is the ultimate outcome.
Yeah, it's the
now,
byproduct.
we live in a material world. We are living in a physical world where you have natural laws and obstacles, and you have all kinds of chaos. And so I don't think it's an easy path to get to that end state. But a lot of world religions talk about, reach nirvana, or, there's just, I think there's some ultimate happiness and joy that can be attained. That's what I believe. And I think you have to follow certain laws or rules or techniques or strategies or tactics that are aligned with goodness that will allow you to find love and joy. I have a wonderful wife of almost 40 years of marriage and 8 kids and 6 grandkids. My oldest grandson turns 12 today.
Wow.
It's Veterans Day, so he has the day off. So he's playing pickleball with his dad.
Nice.
But there is more than just fulfillment or happiness in work. It's through relationships and connection and the stories that you share in common and the things you pass on and the things they teach you. So I think in the ultimate sense, Gallup's polls show that happiness declines from age 20-something to 50, 55. It's because you're in the rat race.
Steep drop off.
And then after 55, it's a U curve. And when you're in your 60s and 70s and 80s, reported happiness is higher than any other age group. Because now you have memories
you've seen
and
so
people,
many things.
And it's not about winning or racing anymore. But so I think you're right in the short term that perfectionist quality is like the kind of the doom of all perfectionists and maximizers.
Sure.
But I actually think when we age and we look back on our life and reminisce, and we have these friends and family, and that's why loneliness is so troubling to me. Young people who actually don't have real friends in real life, aging won't solve their loneliness or unhappiness.
And I think a lot of
it'll make it worse.
And I think a lot of it has to do with, like, did you do something in life that you were really fulfilled by? Like, did you just run the rat race and kind of, systems are built by people we don't even know. Like, these systems we live in today were built by people hundreds of years ago. They've been handed down and modified, but like, we live in a system. So it's like, did you do something like a job that you really didn't love because you didn't know what your strengths were, compared to like, you focused on what your strengths were? You probably, I'm assuming you look back in your life like, wow, I really did that thing I said I wanted to do, or instead of like, man, I wish I would have done that, but I didn't. So I think a lot of it depends on like what you do with the talents that God gives you. It's like the parable of the talents, right?
Yes.
Everybody has talents. Most people don't know what those are. That's the thing where that comes in. But like, if you do know what your talent is and you don't expand it and you don't learn and you don't get better at it, it's like, I think at your end of your life, you feel probably a little bit of regret, that I should have done that. I should have went for it. I was just too scared. I didn't do it.
And Don Clifton, in that book, Soar with Your Strengths, his last chapter is on celebration. So hard work in your area of talent leads to excellence. And then you reward and recognize and celebrate with people you love. Like he said, if you don't celebrate achievement, you're not developing your strengths. That's part of the process of developing into your full potential is celebrating. So I just think there's a joy in that. And a lot of high achievers don't take time to celebrate because they're off to the next.
Well, it's like you celebrate it for a minute. You're not like a month, but like you're like, man, we really did that. I can't believe we got here. And it's like, okay, what do we do next? Like, how do we get to the next level?
That's a recurring pattern for a lot of high achievers, for sure.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, that's kind of my question is more like, do you have to choose? You know, and I think that culture likes to place it as a choice where it's like you can choose happiness and fulfilling relationships and spending time with those you love, or you can choose achievement. And one of them will come at the risk of losing the other one. And I just have not really found that to be true for the most part.
I think it depends. I think you can have a great relationship with your family and still be very, very successful in your career. I think you can actually do both. I never like to look at things as black and white in this area because I believe that there's some middle ground. You know, so I believe it just really depends on what you want to do in your life. Like some people, like they don't even have kids and they just want to focus on work. Now I don't know what it's like at the end of your life when you're like, I didn't have any kids. I don't know. Like I have 5 kids, so like I'm blessed. I got a basketball team. So at the end of my life, you know, I'm going to be hopefully there with my kids and celebrating what we did and have that relationship. But I think everybody has their own paths and everybody has to go down different paths. If everybody went down the same path, society wouldn't be here if everybody did the same thing. So everybody has their own paths and things that they have to go through in life to get to the next level, I believe, you know?
With what we were talking about earlier with young people and loneliness, what do you think are some of the things that are most concerning to you, and what do you look at as being some of the solutions?
I think that the social media companies and smartphone app developers that focus on dopamine addiction have basically helped billions of people be addicted to their screens. And if you're spending 7 or 8 hours a day on TikTok and you don't even know what it's like to look at someone in the eye or shake someone's hand or get a job or have friends or be a friend, I just think that has harmed society at scale. There are some legislators that are passing laws that, you know, maybe will restrict that. Parents aren't wise enough yet to restrict that with their kids under 16. Thankfully, my youngest daughter was averse to having any smartphone or social media apps until she was 18.
She's like a self-cleaning oven.
Unbelievable. I'm like, she learned a little bit from watching her older siblings. And we had been no-screen parents from Mondays through Thursdays, but our kids grew up before the smartphone era when it was television or computers. We had a Monday through Thursday, no screens. Friday we would watch, shows together like American Idol as a family, but there was no independent. Now people are individually glued to screens and devices like together. Most of the time.
Like
together.
In one room, everybody watching something different.
So I actually think you were saying that maybe Gen Alphas will swing the pendulum back and kind of detoxify that. So I think we all have choices to make individually. As a society, there's legislation and then there's free market competition. Imagine if there were platforms that were built that gave you not dopamine hits, but oxytocin, which is called the love hormone, which is actually about really connecting and caring about other people. There are ways to generate oxytocin through conversations. And probably some of your stuff does
emotional
that.
Connection.
And so I think that there has to be in the world of ideas and marketplace a lot of competition that gives alternatives. And I think, I'm an optimist in the long run. I think people are pretty smart. We learn from the mistakes of the past, and hopefully we can learn to ditch our devices, not be glued to AI companion girlfriends and boyfriends and think that that's real, that's artificial. And we can actually start to reconnect with nature, with outdoors, with real life and with real friendships. So I think there's a book called Vital Friends by Gallup that I think is the best book ever done on friendship. And it tells you that the friends you have that you want to keep forever, you have to match your expectations of the friendship with what they actually bring to the friendship. And the scientists found there are 8 things people do in friendships, and you just need to be grateful for the role that your friend plays. Don't expect them to do all 8. But there's like builder, companion, collaborator, champion, mind expander, navigator. There's these roles that we all need. Yeah. And so my hope is that the world will learn that we all need each other and have a way of discovering how to be a better friend and how to have a lot of friends.
Yeah. To me, it's like not all problems need to be solved with technology.
Correct.
Is kind of the thing. Is like we had this obviously massive tech boom, 2000s, 2010s that brought in social media. But the thing that's more, I guess, insidious to me about social media in general is that it implies that it's a social activity when in reality it remains more as a media activity. So it's social media, sure, because it connects you to people, but it's much more of a media consumption tool than it is a social connection tool.
Exactly right. And billions
we're not going to replace it.
Billions of people think they have 100 friends or 500 friends or 1,000 friends, and they don't have any.
That's exactly right.
The word friend, when Facebook
become cheap.
Yeah.
It cheapened it.
Yeah, it was hijacked. Yeah, for
totally.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I hope to see, is that the next generation kind of recognizes that and sort of starts intentionally moving away from these things. Or not necessarily, like I said, there's been a lot of great things that have come from some of these tools, but just look at it for what it is, which is a new form of media consumption. It's like you're scrolling on TikTok instead of watching a movie, but you can't replace in-person connection with the people you love by scrolling on TikTok. You can't replace that with technology in general. I mean, we're biologically hardwired through a lot of years to need other people.
Social interaction.
That's where I think that, loneliness problem is exacerbated, because it fuels that fight or flight response. Because a few thousand years ago, you get removed from the tribe, you die.
Yeah. You weren't part of the community.
Yeah. Like you literally are going to die. Like you're outside of the community, you don't get food, you starve, you die, Yeah. So like when you feel socially isolated or disconnected from the people around you, it triggers that you live in this constant state of anxiety, which is only going to mess up your body's hormone production. There's a double-digit increase in all-cause mortality due to loneliness.
Well, it's feeding your brain what you want. Like it's watching what you're watching, and it's only going to feed you that stuff.
Yeah.
So even in politics, right? If you're extreme left or extreme right or whatever you are, whatever your beliefs are, it's like you're only seeing one side because it knows that you like that side. So it's just going to show you that side. So you don't try to understand the other side. And that's where so many people are, against each other.
In this constant state of rage.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And loneliness is a solvable problem. There's no question about it. But it's solved with not technology, but with real connection.
Yeah.
I think in the Netherlands or somewhere, they have this way where people that are seniors who need caregivers, they bring in someone who needs free rent or something, and so they just team these people up, and now they both have a connection. One of the stories I heard about Texas a few years ago was that there was a rest home or a retirement center adjacent to a school, and the school fourth graders were all reading way under grade level, like miserable literacy for kids, and the adjacent care center, somebody had the idea to bus the grandparents over several times a week to pair up one-on-one with the child. And so what happened was, by the end of the year, the number one predictor of early literacy for kids is how many hours an adult spends one-on-one with them, whether that's a parent or a teacher, in this case, a grandparent. Well, they were shocked and surprised that all of the kids could read well at the end of the year. And medication use in the rest home went down 60% that year.
Wow.
Because these people had something to live for. So people that just come up with ideas like that, let's spread these good ideas all across the country, all around the world.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be some major tech company that comes out with a new swiping tool that makes you swipe before you get a connection to somebody. You know what I mean? It could just be things like that.
Do you know what I'm excited about? When myfamily.com was out and, building connections for millions of families, I remember hearing a podcast from the founder of eHarmony. So all the swiping, Tinder, Meat Market kinds of apps, they've all been very popular and made a lot of money. But eHarmony's founder didn't want to have a visual of the person. He wanted to do a psychological assessment of each party and then match them. And he ended up doing the assessment first, and then after you found these matches, he would show photos, because nobody would date somebody until they'd seen their photos. So he kind of compromised. But imagine an AI that interviews, millions of people and goes deep in their life story, in their values, in their experiences, and transcribes all that. And then an audio version of eHarmony that matches you to possible dates. And of course, you're going to look at their photo and their but I think the loneliness epidemic and people are, dating longer, not getting married, not having kids, that leads to more societal loneliness when you don't have family ties. But I just think AI could play a little role to make people. If you've seen Boardy.ai out of San Francisco, Boardy Boardman, they're connecting startups with investors, hundreds and hundreds this year, $1 trillion of assets under management. They do a vocal interview of both the investor world and the startup world, and now they're making matches every day for free. It's a really cool new way to use human communication and AI to make these connections. It's like LinkedIn, but without a website.
Yeah, that's wild. There's some things to be hopeful about, I guess.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Is like there's a lot of issues, a lot of problems, and some of these problems we've made worse, but now it's just sort of now like we're highlighting that there's new problems here. So why don't we focus our attention now on these things? So I think it's going to be one of the biggest things that we look back on for like the next generation will be something with loneliness. Because of how pervasive it's been and how much it affects overall physical and mental well-being. There's just study after study after study about happiness and fulfillment that all stems back to the quality of the relationships that you have and that you can keep over
100%. Travis, you need to franchise your Making Friends with Travis and have millions of people learn from your example on how to make friends on a podcast.
MakingFriends.ai. Making Friends with Travis. No, it's all about how you communicate, right? It all comes back down to your communication skills. Doesn't matter if you're in sales or not in sales. It's, how do you communicate with other people? How do you get them to open up? How do you get them to take the mask off?
Yeah.
That's, in my mind, it's the most fascinating subject in the world,
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right.
The human mind.
And if nobody's going out to try it, nobody's going to get any better at it. It's the problem. Yeah. I read something recently. It was like almost 60% of young men age 18 to 25 have never approached a woman in public.
Yeah.
I was like,
why don't you do something? Why do you not have confidence in doing that? Because you lack the skill of it. You don't understand how to do it. So as a human being, that's going to be a fear.
Yeah.
Like I was saying last night, when people say, I have the number one fear every human being has over death is the fear of public speaking. That is not true. They have no fear of public speaking. They have a fear of people judging them when they speak. They don't fear speaking in public. They have a fear of people, what they think about them when they speak. Judgment. That's what they fear, judgment.
Yeah.
So it's like you learn those skills, you have confidence. It'd be the same thing if a neurosurgeon somehow skipped medical school, went into perform her first brain surgery. She's not going to have a lot of confidence in that because she doesn't understand what she's doing. So that's why, as you know, communication, number one thing you got to learn.
That's right.
Your dating thing brings back a fact that I learned from the founders of Road Trip Nation.
Okay.
Do you ever see the PBS show? It's been on for like 15 or 20 years, but these 4 kids graduated from college and didn't have any job plans. So they rented an RV, painted it green, drove across the country, interviewing in each city a famous or successful person. And then they videoed that whole thing. And it ended up becoming a very big franchise on PBS. Millions of people have watched, that founder of Starbucks talk about his career path. And what they found was nobody's career path is straight. Everyone stumbled into what they ended up doing. So it was a fantastic thing, Road Trip Nation. But they told me that they built curriculum and Stanford studied their curriculum and they found that the number one biggest way to boost young person's self-efficacy, which is an important psychological construct, like I have confidence, I can do something, and I do it, is that in the 4-month course in college that Road Trip Nation created curriculum for, they only had one objective. They wanted the student to call up an adult in the community and set up an appointment and interview them about their career. And by the time they had done that, all of the students had to do that at the end of the 4 months. The measure of self-efficacy completely skyrocketed because this teenager has now reached out to an adult they never knew, arranged an interview, done an interview with someone who was very happy to tell them their life story and record it. And they're now an adult. They're now, that is a moment where you've entered the world of adults where you can choose to go meet with somebody.
Yeah.
And I think what you said about 18 to 25-year-old men, young men, not having ever, like, something has to be done so that their self-efficacy can increase. So they'll take the risk. They'll open their mouth. They'll ask a question.
It's how they're being taught. Like I said, we all live in systems that have been designed by people hundreds of years ago that we might not even know. And we live in that system. So it's like people can either fight against the system, you can work with the system, or you create new systems. And I believe that people in our day and age, the ones who will have the most impact in the next, 50 years, 100 years, are the ones who create new systems and let people choose which system they want to live in.
Yeah.
And I think that you're starting to see that. But a lot of young men are they're just taught that they're just not really taught the same things that maybe I was taught as a child, or you were taught as a child, you were taught as a child, that you got to work hard, you got to provide, you got to protect. Like, that's how we're wired as men. We are wired to protect, to provide, to keep safe. Women, they're wired by God, and they can still do those things, but they're not as natural. They're more wired to love, to cherish, to show empathy, to like nourish, to like be able to to care and love. And both of those things are so important for our society to have. And I think people are starting to get back to some of those things right now. I'm starting to see a shift. I think you're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you both coming on. I know we've been kind of dancing around it, but where can people go to actually see this version of this AI software now?
We'll start them at Jeremy, AskJeremy.ai. Okay. So AskJeremy.ai, that's the Q&A part. I've got 30-some thousand hours of my training there. For clients and stuff, industry specific, they can ask me like any question. You could be like, I sell solar, door to door. What would be the first 3 questions Jeremy would ask when he knocked on the door, and why? And it'll actually pull those up, and then it will, after it shows you what to ask, it'll then take you to like maybe an 8-minute training where I did just on that subject. It's that specific. Or like, awesome. I sell IT consulting to freight companies. What would be, how would Jeremy, what questions would Jeremy use to build the gap to help them find problems they didn't know they have? Well, boom, 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 here they are. And then here's a 9-minute training where he talks about that specifically.
Nice.
So it's pretty detailed, some would say, for sure. So just start there.
AskJeremy.ai.
AskJeremy.ai. We give them a free trial, like a couple weeks free trial. Then it's like $47 once a month. After that, they would start there. After that, we have other things that it does, like reviews their sales calls, my brain. There's a whole bunch of, they role play with me, It's pretty, it'll even tell them like, hey, did you see 3 minutes and 35 seconds when you asked that question, how it came off kind of defensive? Did you see him like freeze on Zoom and then they went surface level and gave you like one-word answers the rest of the way? If you would have asked that question with this tone, a concerned tone, one that shows empathy, and reframed these words, would have opened them up. So it gets very nuanced.
There's a lot coming.
Yeah, it's not like a gong where it's like, you got to get better to overcome objections. Really?
Yeah.
Well, how? How do I do that? Like, what should have I said?
Golly, thanks.
Thanks for the advice, So it's just fun.
The tonality piece is huge, man. That was biggest unlock for me in selling, was realizing that most people just, they adopt that frame of being the sales guy. Yeah. Whether it's on a door at a used car lot, whatever, they just come at you with that like, hey, how's it going?
Even your mom taught you it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But most people don't understand what that means. That means you're nonverbal. Like, recent studies show, you've read books, 93% of communication, nonverbal. They've updated that study. It's more like 71, 72%. Okay. So about 28% is still your words. Words matter, questions matter, but it's more how you ask them. I always say that your tone is how the prospect interprets your intention behind everything you say and ask. And that's why in acting school, the highest level actors and actresses, they are taught literally how to get you in different emotional states simply by using their tone. And their facial expressions. I say your facial expressions are the remote control to this thing called your tone. Try having like a confused tone with a straight face. Yeah. You can't really do that. So your nonverbal, your body language, and your tone, like really determine how you communicate your message and how people receive it.
How they receive
don't receive it.
That's right.
Not just the words. So many salespeople and people are just so focused on the words, and that is important. More importantly is the tonality, like you talk about.
Yeah. Well, they got to trust you.
Yeah.
It's not the words that you say don't build the trust.
Exactly.
It's the connection they feel, or the lack of connection they feel.
Exactly. 100%. Well said. That was brilliant.
Paul, what about you? How can we keep up with you? Things going on with Soar?
We we're building out a lot of different products with a lot of different great partners. People can go to Soar.com and sign up for alerts. They can follow me on LinkedIn. I have pretty good following on LinkedIn and constantly posting about our platform's goals of uplifting humanity in every area of life that matters.
Sweet.
But yeah, we'll be working with Jeremy's team really closely for the coming years and trying to scale Jeremy to coach and train as many people as possible.
Nice. Getting to the multiple millions. We've already tried. I mean, geez, with my free content, we get like 70 million views a month. But we went and we probably have 500,000-600,000 clients or something, individuals, and we have companies that are on our platform that have thousands. But how do we duplicate that? How do we go 100x that?
How do we do it in every language too?
Yeah, how we do it in every language?
That's a good question.
So it's like this problem that I knew we had like 3 years ago is now solvable.
Solvable. Right. Well, Soar.com, AskJeremy.ai. Yep. Paul, last question for you, man. I submitted my DNA to Ancestry a while back. How much does China know? That's all I want to know.
I was early on with Ancestry, and in the early years, we were looking at the DNA stuff. We tried to buy a company in San Francisco in '99 that was a paternity DNA testing company. So I wrote a foreword to a book on DNA and genealogy in '99. But I know so little about what they've done the last 15 years with DNA and the sale they've made to BlackRock. And I thought that the 23andMe DNA leak was just horrific, horrible that a company could allow that much data about your genome to be available. It's just scary.
Pretty wild.
So, but I think Ancestry's a great company and has had pretty secure track record. So I'm not worried. They've got my DNA too, Travis. So,
we're in this together.
And I actually get these really fun traits. Like I have the sprinter's gene. I have a fun trait that 4 of my kids share, that when we walk out into the sunlight, we sneeze. That's genetic. And that showed up on the Ancestry mobile app. It's like, hey, when you walk out in the sunlight, you're probably going to sneeze. There's like 50 traits like that. So I think DNA is amazing because each of us is unique. And for our physical health and our longevity, I think personalized medicine with AI, I'm super excited about CliftonStrengths, about DNA, about microbiome, about sensors, Apple Watch or whatever. The data that is needed to help us live our best life is going to be available to our AI that we trust to help us live our best life. No previous generation had that. I heard a story in San Francisco a few years ago. A guy had a rare brain disease, a brain tumor, and he worked at Google. He had a bunch of friends at Google. He could no longer work, but they took his DNA of the tumor. They crowdsourced it. They had thousands of Google engineers hacking his tumor DNA to figure out what might be wrong, and they were able to solve his rare illness. Wow. Now imagine any of us. In the future, it won't be 6,000 Google engineers hacking our DNA to find a solution.
Your personal doctor AI.
It'll be your doctor AI or your set of agents AI that's like, Travis, you've got this issue with sleep. We're going to crunch the numbers. We'll give you this regimen, and now you're going to have the best sleep of your life.
Here's this rare mineral discovered in the depths of African jungles that is
going to prevent a lot of disease.
Yeah,
that's what it's going to do. Yeah.
Wild stuff. Guys, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you both are very busy people.
I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Are we your friends now?
I think it's official. I think it's safe to say.
Hey,
we've made friends.
All right, we made friends. Boom.
Yeah, it's a
friends
rare
with
circle.
Travis.
You know what I mean?
Not friendship ring level yet. I won't give you my friendship ring. Not yet. Maybe next time.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having on your show. It's an honor.
Of course. Thanks for coming on again. Soar.com, AskJeremy.ai.
AskJeremy.ai,
and then go check out all the free stuff that they put out, because they don't put any shortage of free stuff out. So,
and to get your franchise of Making Friends with Travis and start your own, how do we reach you?
That's right. Yeah. Just you guys know how to find me. Just DM me. You know what I mean? We'll make it work. Shoot me a text.
I love it.
But yeah, thanks for doing this, guys. I really appreciate it. Everybody else listening, remember, leave every relationship better than you found it. Catch you in the next episode. Peace out.